Vampires, creatures of the night, they evoke both fear and fascination. These legendary beings have haunted our stories for centuries. But where did these myths originate? What makes a vampire a vampire? Vampires are typically undead beings. They often feed on the blood of the living. Their characteristics vary across different cultures. However, some common themes emerge. Vampires are often associated with darkness, immortality, and a thirst for blood. They are creatures that exist outside the natural order. They represent our deepest fears and anxieties. Despite their frightening nature, vampires also hold a strange allure. They are powerful, seductive, and immortal. This combination of fear and fascination makes them enduring figures in our cultural landscape. The vampire, as we know it today, largely originates from European folklore. These tales often depict vampires as undead beings. They rise from their graves to prey on the living. Eastern Europe in particular is rich in vampire lore. These stories often portray vampires as fearsome creatures. They cast a dark shadow over small communities.
One of the key elements of European vampire folklore is the fear of the undead. People believed that the dead could return. This belief fueled the creation of various rituals. These rituals were meant to prevent corpses from rising from the grave. These rituals included staking the body to the ground. Other practices involved burying bodies face down or with specific objects. These practices highlight the very real fear that vampires instilled in people's hearts.
While the modern vampire is largely a product of European folklore, ancient cultures also had their own versions of these creatures. These beings, while not always called vampires, shared similar characteristics. They offer a glimpse into the universality of these fears. In Mesopotamia, ancient texts mention the Ekimu. These were restless spirits that could drain the life force from the living. Similarly, ancient Indian mythology features the Vetala. These were spirits that inhabited corpses and craved blood.
African folklore is also rich in tales of vampiric entities. The Ashanti people of Ghana believed in the Asasabonsum. This creature was said to have iron teeth and to prey on humans. These examples demonstrate that the fear of bloodthirsty beings is not unique to Europe. These fears have existed in various forms across the globe for centuries.
The medieval period in Europe saw a surge in vampire folklore, a time when tales of the undead spread like wildfire. This was a time of plague, war, and widespread superstition where fear and uncertainty ruled the land. People were searching for explanations for the chaos and death around them, desperate to make sense of their suffering. Vampires, often blamed for unexplained illnesses or misfortunes, became a convenient scapegoat for the terrified populace. During this time, the image of the vampire solidified in the collective imagination. They were often described as undead beings with a thirst for blood haunting the night. They were said to rise from their graves to terrorize the living, spreading fear wherever they went. Belief in vampires became so ingrained in some communities that people took extreme measures to protect themselves from these perceived threats. Graves were dug up, and suspected vampires were staked, beheaded, or burned in a desperate attempt to rid the community of evil. These practices, fueled by fear and ignorance, highlight the grip that vampire folklore had on medieval society, a grip that was hard to break. It was a time when the line between superstition and reality was blurred, and the fear of the unknown dictated daily life. Section 5, the 18th century, when vampire hysteria gripped Europe. The 18th century witnessed a resurgence of vampire hysteria across Europe, a phenomenon that gripped the continent with fear and fascination. This period, known as the 18th century vampire controversy, saw a surge in reported vampire cases, with numerous accounts documented in newspapers and official records. These cases often sparked mass panic and led to exhumations and other drastic measures, as communities sought to protect themselves from the perceived threat. Several factors contributed to this vampire panic, creating a perfect storm of fear and superstition. One significant factor was the rise of Enlightenment-era skepticism, which paradoxically fueled interest in the supernatural as people questioned traditional beliefs. This skepticism led to a renewed interest in folklore and superstition, as people sought explanations for the unexplainable. Additionally, Outbreaks of plague and other diseases fueled the belief in vampires, as these illnesses often caused mysterious deaths that were hard to explain. Governments and church officials often became involved in these cases, conducting investigations and sometimes even sanctioning exhumations. They sought to either confirm or debunk the existence of vampires, often leading to heated debates and public trials. This period saw a clash between traditional beliefs and the emerging scientific rationalism of the time, highlighting the tension between old and new ways of thinking. The 18th century vampire controversy left a lasting impact on European culture, influencing literature, art, and public consciousness. It solidified the vampire's place in literature and art, inspiring countless stories, paintings, and plays. It also reflected the anxieties and uncertainties of a society grappling with change, as people tried to make sense of a rapidly evolving world. Section 6. Peter Blagojevich, a Serbian case study. One of the most well-documented cases of the 18th century vampire panic is that of Petar Blagojevich from Serbia. In 1725, Blagojevich died. Shortly after his death, several villagers died under mysterious circumstances. These deaths sparked fear and panic. Villagers claimed that Blagojevich had returned from the dead as a vampire. They reported seeing him walking the village at night. Some even claimed that he had attacked them. Fearing a vampire epidemic, villagers exhumed Blagojevich's body. They claimed to find fresh blood in his mouth and that his body had not decomposed. They drove a stake through his heart and burned his body. This case is a stark example of how fear and superstition can grip a community. Section 7. Milos Kekar, another tale from the Balkans. Another chilling case from the same period is that of Milos Sekar, also from Serbia. After dying from a supposed vampire attack, Sekar was said to have risen from the dead. He terrorized his village. According to reports, Sekar's reign of terror lasted for 9 weeks. During this time, he attacked and killed several villagers. The villagers claimed that he even entered their homes to drink their blood. Fear gripped the village. Finally, the villagers decided to exhume Sekar's body. They found his body uncorrupted. Fresh blood stained his shroud. The villagers staked his body and burned it. The case of Milos Sekar, like that of Petar Blagojevich, illustrates the very real fear that vampires instilled in people. Section 8. Beyond Europe, vampires in global folklore. Vampire-like creatures are not limited to European folklore. Cultures around the world have their own tales of bloodthirsty beings that prey on the living. These creatures, while often sharing similarities with the European vampire, also have unique characteristics.
In South America, there is the legend of the Azteca. This creature is said to be a shape-shifting vampire. It preys on people while they sleep.
In China, there is the Jiangshi. This creature is a type of hopping vampire. It drains the life force from its victims.
These examples demonstrate that the fear of the unknown, and specifically of creatures that feed on human life force, is a universal theme. It transcends cultural boundaries. Section 9. The enduring fascination. Why we're still captivated by vampires. Centuries after the first vampire tales were spun, these creatures continue to captivate our imaginations. From ancient folklore to modern pop culture, vampires have always held a special place in our collective psyche. What is it about vampires that continues to fascinate and frighten us? Is it their mysterious nature, or perhaps something deeper? Perhaps it is their immortality. Humans are mortal beings, bound by the passage of time. We are constantly reminded of our own mortality, the inevitable end that awaits us all. Vampires, on the other hand, are ageless and eternally youthful. They defy the natural order, living forever. Or maybe it is their power. Vampires are often depicted as being incredibly strong and possessing supernatural abilities. Vampires are often depicted as being incredibly strong and possessing supernatural abilities. They can mesmerize, transform, and even control the elements. They are creatures of the night, shrouded in mystery and danger. Their very existence challenges our understanding of life and death. This combination of beauty, power, and danger is undeniably alluring. It draws us in, making us question our own desires and fears. Whatever the reason, vampires continue to be a source of fascination. They have evolved with us, adapting to our changing fears and fantasies. They appear in our books, movies, and television shows, constantly reinventing themselves to stay relevant. They remind us of our own mortality, the fleeting nature of our existence. They also remind us of the darkness that lurks within us all, the primal instincts we often try to suppress. Section 10. Conclusion. The Undying Legacy of the Vampire. From the ancient myths of Mesopotamia to the vampire panic of 18th century Europe, these creatures have left an indelible mark on human culture. They represent our deepest fears. They also embody our fascination with the unknown. Vampires, in all their forms, continue to haunt our stories and our imaginations. Whether they are fearsome creatures of the night or seductive immortals, they remind us of the power of belief, the allure of the forbidden, and the enduring fascination with that which goes bump in the night. The vampire, it seems, is a creature that will never truly die. They will continue to evolve and adapt. They will continue to reflect our anxieties and desires for centuries to come. Please leave your comments and let us know if you have ever encountered a vampire. We will be waiting for... Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more fascinating videos.